The conference room smelled like expensive cologne and old leather. My father stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, staring down at me like I was a blueprint with a fatal flaw. Around us sat 12 men in suits, partners in Moreno Engineering, the firm he'd built from nothing. I was 23, fresh out of university, and stupid enough to think blood mattered more than gender. "You want to join this firm?" he asked, voice flat. "Yes, sir. I've studied." "You've studied theory," he interrupted. "Pretty drawings and sustainability fantasies. This is real engineering. Steel. Concrete. Deadlines that'll crush you if you blink wrong." I straightened my shoulders. "I graduated top of my class. I can handle." "You're a woman," he said simply, like stating the weather. "Clients don't respect women. Contractors don't listen to women. And I don't have time to babysit someone who'll quit the moment she gets married or pregnant." The room went silent. Not one partner defended me. Not one. "I won't quit," I whispered. "You already have," he replied. "This meeting is over." I walked out with my degree feeling worthless and my last name feeling like a curse. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at my portfolio. Pages of designs I'd poured my soul into, bridges that curved like poetry, housing complexes that breathed with green roofs and solar integration. My father called them childish. Impractical. Emotional. Maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't belong in his world of rigid calculations and profit margins. But sitting there, humiliation still burning in my chest, I realized something important: I didn't want to belong to his world. I wanted to build my own. I opened my laptop and started researching business licenses. By midnight, I'd drafted a mission statement for a company that didn't exist yet. By dawn, I'd named it ArcSol Urban Design. Architecture plus solutions. A firm that would prove sustainability and beauty could coexist with structural integrity. My savings account had $6,000. Enough for 3 months of rent and basic software subscriptions. It wasn't enough. But anger, I learned, makes excellent fuel. The first year nearly broke me. I pitched to anyone who'd listen: city councils, nonprofits, small developers. Most meetings ended with polite rejections. "We appreciate your vision, but we need someone with more experience." Translation: someone older. Someone male. I lived on instant noodles and library Wi-Fi. Taught myself zoning laws from outdated textbooks. Learned 3D modeling through free online tutorials at 2 in the morning. My apartment became my office, my bedroom, my war room. Then, finally, a break. A junior city planner named Marcus reached out after seeing my proposal for modular low-income housing. "The department head shot this down," he admitted over coffee. "But I think you're onto something. Let me see if I can push it through quietly." 3 months later, I got the contract. $50,000 to build a pilot project in the city's poorest neighborhood. It wasn't glamorous. But it was mine. Construction began in March. Every morning, I showed up in steel-toed boots and a hard hat, double-checking measurements, arguing with contractors who treated me like a secretary. One foreman refused to take orders from me until I physically climbed the scaffolding and corrected his welding mistake myself. "You always this stubborn?" he asked afterward, grudging respect in his voice. "Only when I'm right," I replied. The project finished 2 weeks early and 10% under budget. The units were small but efficient: solar panels on every roof, rainwater collection systems, communal gardens. Families moved in and cried. Local news covered it. "The woman who built hope from scrap," one headline read. My phone buzzed. A text from my father: "Don't let this get to your head. One success doesn't make a career." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it and went back to work. Success attracts attention. Unfortunately, not all of it is good. 6 months after my housing project, I started bidding on larger contracts. That's when the emails started. Anonymous messages to my clients, claiming my designs were plagiarized. Fake reviews online calling my work unsafe. At first, I thought it was random trolls. Then I noticed the pattern. Every attack came right before a major pitch. I hired a tech-savvy friend to trace the IP addresses. They led back to a single office building. Moreno Engineering. My father's firm. When I confronted him over the phone, he didn't deny it. Competition is competition, he said coldly. If you can't handle heat, stay out of the industry. You're sabotaging your own daughter. I'm protecting my business from amateurs. That conversation cost me 3 contracts and nearly $30,000 in legal fees to clear my name. It also taught me something valuable: playing fair against someone who cheats only makes you a target. The sabotage campaign worked. Funding partners withdrew. Clients ghosted me. My bank account dropped below $1,000. My landlord started leaving eviction warnings on my door. I sat in my empty office, really just a corner of my apartment with a folding table, and considered giving up. Marcus, the planner who'd given me my first shot, called to check in. I heard what happened, he said quietly. It's not right. Doesn't matter if it's right. Matters if I survive it. What if you didn't have to survive alone? He explained that he'd connected with a private investor interested in ethical development. Someone who valued innovation over ego. They want to meet you. No promises, but it's a chance. I had nothing left to lose. I said yes. 2 weeks later, I signed a partnership agreement. The investor stayed anonymous but provided enough capital to keep ArcSol alive. One condition. I maintained full creative control. No interference. No family favors. I built my company back from the ground up, one careful contract at a time. 3 years passed. 3 years of 16-hour days, rejected proposals, and small victories that slowly accumulated into something real. ArcSol grew from just me to a team of 7 talented designers who believed in what we were building. We specialized in what others ignored: adaptive reuse of abandoned buildings, green infrastructure in underserved neighborhoods, public spaces that actually served the public. Our portfolio became a testament to what architecture could be when profit wasn't the only goal. Meanwhile, Moreno Engineering stagnated. My father refused to adapt to changing standards, still relying on outdated methods and old boy connections. Clients started noticing. Contracts started disappearing. I didn't celebrate his struggles. I was too busy earning mine. Then came the SmartBridge Initiative, a massive government project to modernize the city's aging infrastructure with sustainable technology. The kind of contract that could define a firm's legacy. Every major company in the region submitted proposals. Including mine. Including his. The selection committee deliberated for months. I didn't sleep well during that time, running scenarios in my head, second-guessing every detail of our proposal. My team had worked themselves to exhaustion perfecting the pitch, a modular bridge system that incorporated solar collection, rainwater filtration, and adaptive load distribution. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning. My assistant knocked on my office door, face pale. "You need to see this." I pulled up the press release. ArcSol Urban Design had won the SmartBridge Initiative. $12 million. 5-year contract. Front page news. My father's firm came in fourth. The phone started ringing immediately: reporters, congratulations from colleagues, interview requests. I answered them mechanically, professional smile plastered on, while inside I felt something complicated. Not quite triumph. Not quite relief. Something heavier. That evening, I attended the public announcement ceremony. Cameras flashed. Officials shook my hand. And in the back row, I saw him. My father. Stone-faced. Clapping slowly, deliberately. Our eyes met across the room. He left before I could speak to him. Probably for the best. The interview aired nationally. The journalist was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and sharp questions. "How does it feel," she asked, "surpassing your father's legacy?" I'd prepared for this question. Practiced neutral answers about respecting the past while building the future. But sitting there under the lights, I told the truth instead. "I'm not surpassing it," I said carefully. "I'm rebuilding what should have been possible all along." My father built his career in a different era, with different values. I'm grateful for what he taught me about resilience. But I'm also building something he never could, a firm where talent matters more than gender, where innovation matters more than tradition. The clip went viral. Think pieces were written. My inbox exploded. My brother called that night, angry. "Dad says you publicly humiliated him." I spoke the truth. "You made him look obsolete." "He made himself obsolete," I replied, surprised by my own calmness. I just stopped pretending otherwise. For the first time in our relationship, I hung up first. Success brought scrutiny. The bigger ArcSol became, the more people wanted to find cracks in the foundation. Competitors spread rumors. Former employees of my father's firm gave interviews painting me as vindictive. Social media buzzed with takes about family loyalty versus ambition. I ignored most of it. But I couldn't ignore what happened next. My head of operations came to me with security footage. Someone had been accessing our shared server from an unauthorized device, copying project files. The timestamps matched late-night entries by our newest junior architect, a recent hire named Vincent Moreno. My cousin. My father's nephew. I watched the footage 3 times, feeling sick. Vincent had seemed so genuine during his interview, so eager to learn sustainable design practices his previous firm hadn't valued. Now I understood why his resume had seemed too perfect. "Do you want me to call the police?" my operations head asked. I thought about it. Legal action would be justified. But it would also become a media circus, another chapter in the family drama everyone seemed to enjoy watching. "No," I said slowly. "Not yet. I have a different idea." I didn't fire Vincent. Instead, I called him into my office, closed the door, and played the footage without comment. He went white. "I can explain." "Don't," I interrupted. "I know exactly what happened. My father planted you here to steal designs. The question is what happens next." He swallowed hard. "Are you pressing charges?" "That depends. Do you want to keep being his spy, or do you want to be an actual architect?" Vincent stared at me. "What?" "You have talent. Your design work, when you're not busy stealing files, is actually innovative. So here's the deal, you feed my father exactly what I tell you to feed him. Dummy blueprints. False specifications. In exchange, you keep your job and I teach you what real architecture looks like. Why would you trust me after this?" "I don't," I said simply. "But I trust that you're smart enough to recognize a better offer when you hear one." He took the deal. Over the next 2 weeks, Vincent passed carefully crafted false designs to my father. Structural calculations that looked plausible but contained fatal flaws. Material specifications that would never pass inspection. We tracked every file that left our server. Then we waited. The trap sprung itself. Moreno Engineering submitted a bid for a major municipal contract. Using the exact dummy blueprints Vincent had leaked. Word for word. Measurement for measurement. The city's engineering review board caught the errors immediately. More importantly, they recognized the designs as stolen work, since I'd preemptively filed the fake plans with the patent office as conceptual studies. The scandal hit like a wrecking ball. Moreno Engineering was blacklisted from city contracts pending investigation. Professional boards opened ethics inquiries. Clients canceled existing projects. My father called my office 73 times in 2 days. I didn't answer. Finally, he showed up in person, pushing past my assistant into my office. "You ruined me," he shouted, face purple with rage. I looked up from my computer calmly. No, Dad. You copied me. There's a difference. This was entrapment. This was consequences. You spent 3 years trying to sabotage my business. You planted a spy in my company. You stole proprietary designs. All I did was make sure you couldn't profit from theft. I'm your father. You stopped being my father the day you told me I wasn't good enough because of my gender, I replied, voice steady. Everything since then has just been business. He stood there, chest heaving, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Then he turned and left without another word. Security escorted him out. I returned to work. My hands didn't shake until hours later. Months passed. ArcSol continued growing. We opened a second office. Hired 20 more employees. Launched a mentorship program for young women in engineering. The SmartBridge project broke ground to huge fanfare. I stopped checking news about Moreno Engineering. Stopped wondering what my father was doing. Stopped carrying the weight of his approval, or lack thereof, on my shoulders. Then one rainy Monday, my assistant buzzed the intercom. Ms. Moreno? There's a Mr. Richard Moreno here about the senior engineer opening. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. What? He says he has an appointment. Should I send him away? I stared at my calendar. We'd posted the position 2 weeks ago after our lead structural engineer retired. Over 100 applications. I'd reviewed most of them personally. I didn't remember seeing his name. Give me 2 minutes, I said. Then send him in. I used those 2 minutes to breathe. To remind myself I was in control. To prepare for whatever came next. Nothing could have prepared me. My father walked through the door and my breath caught. He looked smaller somehow. Thinner. His suit, once impeccably tailored, hung loose at the shoulders. Gray streaked his hair more heavily than I remembered. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched a folder. He didn't recognize the office logo at first. Didn't connect the modern glass and steel space with the daughter he'd dismissed. His eyes scanned the walls, photos of our completed projects, awards, press coverage, with something like confusion. Then he saw the nameplate on my desk. Director, Ava Moreno, founder. He froze. The folder slipped from his fingers, paper scattering across the floor. You, he whispered. You're the director? I stood slowly, came around the desk, and picked up his resume. Scanned it quickly. Outdated software certifications. No recent projects. A 5-month employment gap. Please sit down, Mr. Moreno, I said professionally. Let's discuss your qualifications. He stood rooted in place. Ava, I didn't know. It's Ms. Moreno during business hours, I interrupted gently. Would you like water before we begin? Something crumbled in his expression. He nodded mutely and sank into the chair across from my desk like a puppet with cut strings. The interview was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not because he made it difficult, but because conducting it fairly meant treating him like any other candidate. And every question revealed just how far he'd fallen. Your resume shows a 5-month gap in employment. Can you explain that? He cleared his throat. My company closed. We had some financial difficulties. What caused those difficulties? A long pause. Mismanagement. And some legal issues. I made a note. What's your experience with green building certifications? I've worked mostly with traditional methods. Sustainable design software? I'm willing to learn. Building information modeling? We used AutoCAD. Each answer dug the hole deeper. He knew it. I knew it. But I continued methodically through my standard interview questions, giving him every opportunity to demonstrate competence he no longer possessed. The industry had evolved. He hadn't. Finally, I set down my pen. Why do you want this position? He looked at me directly for the first time. Because I need work. My savings are gone. I have bills I can't pay. And because. His voice cracked. Because my daughter built something extraordinary, and I was too proud to see it until I lost everything. The honesty gutted me. I should have ended it there. Should have thanked him professionally and moved on to the next candidate. But I thought about the junior planner who'd given me a chance when no one else would. About the investor who'd believed in my vision when I had nothing but determination. About all the times someone could have crushed me and chose mercy instead. The position pays $65,000 annually, I said carefully. 6-month probation period. Standard benefits. You'd report to our lead structural engineer and work as part of a collaborative team. No special treatment. No shortcuts. If your work isn't up to our standards, you'll be let go like anyone else. Are those terms acceptable? He stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. You're offering me the job? I'm offering you a probationary contract. Whether it becomes a job depends entirely on your performance. Why? The word came out broken. After everything I did to you, why would you? Because someone has to break the cycle, I said quietly. Because holding grudges takes more energy than I want to spend. And because despite everything, you taught me one valuable lesson, how not to treat people. If you're willing to learn how to treat them correctly, then yes, you can work here. He nodded, unable to speak. I slid the contract across the desk. He signed it with shaking hands. The staff learned within hours. In a company of 30 people, secrets didn't last long. I called an all-hands meeting the next morning to address it directly. Some of you have probably heard that we've hired Richard Moreno, I began. Yes, he's my father. No, that didn't factor into the hiring decision. He met the basic qualifications for the position, and everyone deserves a chance to rebuild their career. I expect you to treat him the way you'd treat any new hire, with professionalism and fairness. Judge his work, not his name. Are we clear? Nods around the room. Some supportive. Some skeptical. Carla, my head of operations, lingered after the meeting. You sure about this? She asked quietly. No, I admitted. But I'm sure about giving people second chances. We built this company on that principle. I can't abandon it now just because it's complicated. And if he screws up? Then he's fired. Same as anyone else. She studied my face, then nodded. Your company. Your call. But I'm watching him. I wouldn't expect anything less. My father struggled. Badly. Modern engineering software confused him. Collaborative work environments frustrated him. He was used to being in charge, issuing orders, having final say. Now he was the most junior member of teams led by people half his age. I watched from a distance as he missed deadlines, blamed the technology, argued with project managers. Part of me wanted to intervene. The larger part knew he needed to figure this out himself. Then something shifted. I was working late one Thursday when I heard voices from the common area. Peering out, I saw my father hunched over a computer with Jamie, one of our newest engineers, barely 24 years old. See, the load distribution algorithm works like this, Jamie explained patiently, guiding his mouse through the calculations. Once you get the hang of it, it's actually faster than the old methods. My father listened intently, asking questions, taking notes like a student. Could you show me that again? He asked, without a trace of ego. Jamie did. They worked together for another hour before my father thanked him, genuinely thanked him, and packed up for the night. I stayed hidden, processing what I'd witnessed. Pride and humility warring in equal measure. The transformation wasn't instant. But slowly, week by week, my father began adapting. He arrived early. Stayed late. Asked for help without shame. Listened more than he spoke. His first solo project was a small pedestrian bridge in a neighborhood park. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that would make headlines. But he approached it with a care I'd never seen from him before, researching accessibility standards, consulting with community members, incorporating feedback from the team. When the bridge opened, he stood in the back during the ribbon-cutting ceremony. A little girl in a wheelchair crossed it first, grinning. My father's eyes glistened. "That's the first time I built something that made someone smile," he told me quietly afterward. "How does it feel?" I asked. "Like I wasted a lot of years building the wrong things." We stood in silence, watching families enjoy the park. Not quite reconciled. But not quite enemies anymore either. 6 months into his probation, disaster struck. We were conducting a site inspection on the SmartBridge project when a temporary support structure collapsed. No one was seriously hurt, minor bruises, one sprained ankle, but it could have been catastrophic. The project manager immediately started damage control, preparing statements, looking for scapegoats. I arrived on site expecting chaos. What I found was my father standing in front of the construction crew, taking full responsibility. "The failure was in my section calculations," he said clearly, to reporters who'd gathered. "I approved the temporary supports. I missed a stress factor. This is my error, not ArcSol's. The company maintains the highest standards. I failed to meet them." The cameras ate it up. My head of operations pulled me aside. "He's falling on his sword for you." "I know," I said, watching him answer questions with uncomfortable honesty. "That'll tank his career again." "Maybe. Or maybe it's the first truly honest thing he's ever done professionally." Later, in my office, I reviewed his calculations. Found the error. It was small, the kind that happens when you're learning new software and trying too hard. Fixable. Not fireable. But he'd owned it publicly before I could spin it. Protected the company's reputation at his own expense. For the first time in my life, I felt proud of him. That evening, he knocked on my office door. I was still there at 8 p.m., as usual, reviewing project timelines. He stood in the doorway looking exhausted. "Can I come in?" I nodded. He sat across from me, in the same chair he'd occupied 6 months earlier for his interview. Everything had changed. Everything felt the same. "I owe you an apology," he started. "You already apologized when?" "Not for today. For everything." He met my eyes. "For telling you that you weren't good enough. For sabotaging your business. For treating you like competition instead of my daughter. For measuring your worth by my standards instead of recognizing your own." His voice broke on the last words. I stayed quiet, letting him finish. "You built something greater than I ever could," he continued. "Not just this company. A whole different way of thinking about what engineering can be. And I was so threatened by that, so terrified of being shown up, that I tried to destroy it. I tried to destroy you." Tears ran down his face. Not the angry tears of frustration I'd seen before. Something deeper. Something that looked like genuine remorse. "I don't know if you can forgive me," he whispered. "I'm not sure I deserve it." I thought about all the years of hurt. The casual dismissals. The active sabotage. The damage that might never fully heal. Then I thought about the little girl crossing a bridge built with care. About second chances. About breaking cycles. "I don't know either," I said honestly. "But I'm willing to try figuring it out." After that night, things changed. Not dramatically. Not into some fairy tale reconciliation. But gradually, organically, we began building something new. Not a father-daughter relationship in the traditional sense. Something more complicated. Colleagues with shared history. Wounded people learning to trust again. He threw himself into work with renewed purpose. Took on the projects no one else wanted, the tedious calculations, the community outreach, the unglamorous foundation work that made everything else possible. He mentored junior staff with a patience I'd never witnessed before. I promoted him after 8 months. Not to leadership, he didn't want that, and frankly neither did I. but to senior engineer, based purely on merit. The team voted in favor unanimously. Together, we started an initiative neither of us could have built alone, a mentorship program pairing experienced engineers with young women entering the field. He taught technical skills. I taught them how to navigate a profession that still didn't always welcome them. "Why are you doing this?" one mentee asked him during a session I was observing. "Because my daughter had to learn these lessons the hard way," he answered. "Because I was part of the problem. And because I'd like to be part of the solution before I retire." The young woman nodded, satisfied. I blinked back unexpected tears. A year after he'd walked into my office with a resume and broken pride, I stood on a bridge. Not the smart bridge, that was still under construction. This was smaller, newer. A pedestrian crossing in the revitalized waterfront district. Our latest project. The dedication ceremony was simple. City officials gave speeches. Local residents cheered. And then the mayor unveiled the plaque, Moreno Span designed by ArcSol Urban Design. A bridge to new possibilities. Reporters immediately swarmed me. "Is it named after your father?" I smiled, having prepared for this. "It's named for the idea that bridges connect things. Not just places, but people. Past and future. Mistakes and growth. It's for everyone who was told they couldn't build something lasting, and did anyway." The cameras flashed. I posed for photos with the team, with community members, with my father standing slightly to the side, looking uncomfortable with attention. Later, after the crowds dispersed, we walked the bridge together. Just the two of us, footsteps echoing on the sustainable composite decking. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For building something I could be part of. For not shutting the door completely. For being bigger than I was." I considered his words. "I didn't do it for you," I said, not unkindly. "I did it because I needed to prove to myself that I could succeed without becoming cruel in the process. That I could win without making someone else lose everything." "You did more than succeed. You changed what success looks like." We reached the center of the bridge, leaned against the railing, looked out at the water-reflecting city lights. The moment felt significant. Not healed, healing takes longer than a year. But no longer actively bleeding. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we keep building," I said. "Together, if you want. Separately, if that's better. But forward. Always forward." The story could end there. In many ways, it does. The dramatic arc completes: daughter overcomes father's rejection, builds empire, demonstrates mercy instead of revenge. Clean narrative. Satisfying conclusion. But real life isn't that tidy. Forgiveness isn't a single moment but a series of daily choices. Trust rebuilds slowly, requiring constant maintenance like any structure worth preserving. My father still frustrates me. He backslides into old habits, dismissing ideas too quickly, defaulting to authority instead of collaboration. I call him on it. Sometimes he listens. Sometimes he doesn't. We're learning. The company continues growing. We landed 2 more major contracts. Opened a 3rd office. Published research on adaptive urban design that's being taught in universities. My father contributed to some of those papers, credited alongside engineers a third his age. He seems proud of that in a way championships and corner offices never made him. We have dinner monthly now. Not as often as some families, more than we managed for years. We talk about projects, industry changes, his men's progress. Occasionally we reference the past, but carefully, like defusing old explosives. Mostly we focus on what's being built rather than what was destroyed. He'll never be the father I needed as a child. I've made peace with that. But he's becoming someone I can respect as an adult. That's enough. Last week, I gave a keynote speech at the National Engineering Convention. Stood on a stage in front of 3,000 professionals and told my story. Not all of it, some wounds stay private. But the arc. The rejection. The rebuilding. The unexpected reconciliation. We spend so much energy trying to prove ourselves to people who doubt us, I said, watching faces in the audience. Trying to earn validation from those who withheld it. But the greatest architecture I ever designed wasn't a bridge or a building. It was the life I built after I stopped waiting for permission to build it. Applause. Questions. Handshakes afterward. And in the back of the auditorium, nearly invisible, my father watching with an expression I'd never seen before. Not pride exactly. Something humbler. Gratitude, maybe. That I'd let him witness what I'd become. Driving home that night, I thought about the girl who'd sat in a conference room 5 years ago, being told she wasn't good enough. About the woman who'd chosen to build anyway. About the father who'd torn her down and the imperfect person he was trying to become. Nobody's story ends cleanly. We're all unfinished blueprints, constantly under revision. But standing on foundations built from failure and stubbornness and unexpected grace, I realized something. I'd proven everything I needed to prove. Not to him. To myself. And that made all the difference.